Close your Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of our TEDxYouth ACSAmman event. My name is Nadine Sabah, and I'm the head organizer for this year's event. Before we begin, I'd like to recap some of the things I said yesterday. First of all, when the year started, I was confident that we would have a regular event by this time in the year. But unfortunately, the situation hasn't changed enough for us to be able to do that. At the same time, the irregular has become regular. So the TEDx team collectively decided on having a digital event. That being said, we have some really interesting speeches prepared today. Now, I would like to show a quick video explaining what TEDx is all about.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized and licensed from TED, a non-profit devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out.
Able to find a silver lining in a difficult situation. The time's grit helped us persevere because grit happens to be one of the dispositions necessary to thrive on turmoil. Before we get to the really exciting speeches lined up, I'd like to share something relating to our theme. Yesterday, I showed a TED Talk about grit, as mentioned. Today, I want to show a different video, a new perspective on the life we've been living for the past year and what our future holds.
Coronavirus has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt, like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to normality, trying to stitch our future to our past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists. And in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we have built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse than a return to normality. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world. And ready to fight for it.
And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Are you tired of hearing the same advice on how to keep a positive mindset? It might be time to look into how electrons can help you see the bigger picture. Laura, a senior at ACS, will be discussing why self-help books need to look into quantum mechanics.
There are two things I remember from 9th grade physics. The first is that Crest isn't just a toothpaste brand, it's also the highest point on a wave. The second is the theory of quantum mechanics. Now, before anyone gasps in awe, no, I'm not going to be delivering a speech on quantum mechanics because I do not have the knowledge. I remember sitting in that physics classroom one hot day after lunch. As luck may have it, this was the day we would encounter quantum mechanics for the very first time. The lights were dimmed, and this model was projected in front of the room. This model illustrates how an electron can exist everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I learned that scientists rely on a specific random point that could be here, here, or here. This was quite an overwhelming concept because how could something be there and not be there at the same time? For 9th grade Laura, this was all too much. For her, there was always just one answer, right or wrong. In this case, there was no right or wrong. There was just a maybe. Maybe if the scientists had looked for the electron before lunch, they would have found it somewhere else. I was not satisfied with maybe, so I left that physics classroom quite frustrated that scientists couldn't decide where an electron should or shouldn't be. Still, the idea lingered, until one day during Cal class, we were looking at theorems and proofs. The most well-known theorem for high schoolers is the Pythagorean Theorem. Although very few high schoolers question the validity of this theorem, there are several proofs. I can stand here and show you example after example of a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, all leading me to the correct answers. But if I show you just one example where this doesn't hold true, you'll walk away remembering just that. We can agree that the tiny possibility that this theorem doesn't hold true stands out more than the greater possibility that it does. This isn't something new. When we face challenges, we tend to magnify extreme outcomes regardless of however many possibilities there are. In that physics classroom, I hadn't thought much about the area between there or not there, good or bad, pessimistic and optimistic. Unlike scientists, we tend to rely on a specific random point without taking into consideration all the other possible outcomes there are. I think the scientists were onto something. They had found a way to map and analyze all the possible points before they even went looking for it. To me, that sounds like a great way to problem solve. We can map out our own field of probabilities to look at the positive, neutral, and negative outcomes that come from the challenges we face. I'm not being pessimistic for judging that the good doesn't always outweigh the bad in all situations. With this map, we're prepared. Now, there's a fine line between being prepared for the worst and overthinking the worst. There are just possibilities and ways to deal with these outcomes. Skydivers jump with 2 parachutes in the unlikely event that one falls off or it doesn't open. We wear seatbelts even though we never want to be put in the position where they have to save our lives. These safety measures don't make us pessimistic. We just recognize that there are multiple outcomes and we prepare accordingly. This is how we can problem solve challenges. Let's say you were stranded out at sea. A big wave comes over you, so you start to panic. If we map out this challenge, we can see that there is a chance of drowning. There's also a chance that the wave will pass. There's a chance that a shark will get to you before the wave does. There's even a chance a dolphin will come to your rescue. There's actually a greater chance that the dolphin will get to you before the shark does. That's a misconception. You're also far more likely to get killed by a cow, but that's besides the point. Your ability to recognize all these possibilities is what makes the difference. A known law of quantum mechanics is that no measurement is certain and probability reigns supreme in the subatomic world. This applies to us too. Relying on one point or one possibility isn't accurate in picturing the world that surrounds us. It is all possibilities and all outcomes that create a broader, more accurate picture. Now, what if you've mapped out your field of probability? How can you avoid being overwhelmed by all the possibilities, and how can you make choices? Think of it like a game of chess. You can play it all out in your head, and it'll hurt a little less if you can predict the checkmate. When you're playing chess, you can only make decisions based on what's in front of you. This is the same. There's no point in focusing on the unknown or the outliers. The next time you're facing a challenge, take a minute to recognize all the possible outcomes, and don't let one extreme dim the rest. At the end of the day, the only thing you're in control of is your reaction and preparedness. The rest just depends on which random outcome you find when looking at your own field of probability. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Next up, we have Muna. Muna is a junior at ACS, and she'll introduce a wellness technique called positive aging and explain the importance of espousing this optimistic way of thinking in order to enjoy life a little bit more.
The famous Walt Disney once said, "Laughter is timeless, imagination has no age, dreams are forever." Now, many of us may agree with the idea of this quote, but do we really apply it? As we grow older and move on with our lives every day, do we all really sustain creative imaginations and wild dreams, or do we let our tears put off our birthday candle flames? In our societies today, many stigmas surround aging and how we should or shouldn't act based on how old we are. Really, we should all just live optimistic lives full of hope and joy and stop viewing age as a countdown of days we have left on earth, but start to envision a count up of marvelous memories instead. This sounds unrealistic, doesn't it? Today, I am here to tell you all about why this should be the new realistic and us by society regarding aging and growing positively will really support our mental health. And here's one huge way it does. Let me ask you guys a question. Think to yourself and honestly consider if you would start learning a new skill at 65 years of age. If you think you would not, and even for those of you who feel like you would, let's all take a moment to reflect upon our mindsets. The Australian Positive Psychology Institute defines positive aging as the process of maintaining a positive attitude, feeling good about yourself, keeping fit and healthy, and engaging fully in life as you age. This clarifies the fact that positive aging is basically the idea of continuing on with your life as normal, taking care of yourself, going about your day, and not letting everything stop just because of your age. The moment you start cutting the things off that give you purpose and direction is the moment you start butchering your mental health. To stay mentally healthy is difficult, but one of the things that can really keep you happy and going is purpose. And without starting new skills, daily activity, or just making the most out of your day every day, your mental health will just deteriorate. That's why we need to actually be more open to the idea of, for example, starting a new skill at 65, etc., and ignoring the stigmas around age in our society, and just come as one to support those that do things that aren't stereotypical of their age instead of ridiculing them. Life is all about living freely, not by society's ideas of what we should or shouldn't do, regardless of how old one is. Therefore, it is never too late to start something. Give your life some purpose, to give your brain some sanity. Secondly, not only will disregarding the stereotypes brought to us by society about aging have a positive impact on our mental health, but also on our physical health, believe it or not. Mentally, when you believe and convince yourself to be who you want to be and embrace your numbers, then you will physically start to glow. While when you are always stressed about your age and the midlife crisis and the stereotypes you need to follow for your age, you will stop aging gracefully and just start developing stress wrinkles, making you older than you already are. In fact, according to Penn Medicine, 90% of people who develop wrinkles early on get them because of stress. Do you want to fall into this caliber? Seriously, do you want to be a part of the 90% that stress while aging? Then let it start being evident through their appearance? Probably not. And wrinkles aren't really that huge of an issue, considering this type of pessimistic attitude can lead to way more serious conditions, such as heart diseases, muscle fatigue, unbalanced blood levels, and way more. Hence, we need to start disregarding society's norms about aging, as if we don't, it can also take over our physical well being. Lastly, allowing ourselves to detach the stereotypes society attaches to our ages can really support and allowing us to live victorious and unique lives. An example of this can be 99-year-old world record holder for the senior Olympians, George Colognes, the swimmer. He literally swam the fastest 50-meter freestyle in his age group at 99. If George let people tell him he was too old to swim at this level, or even allowed himself to stay seated all day, as 99-year-olds are pictured to be, then he wouldn't have been able to do something so unique and successful, making the most out of his life. He let go of society's norms and continued doing what he's passionate about, leading him to maintain long-term health, happiness, and success. He is one many of us should really learn from. Now, I know some extreme things may cross your mind when hearing about this whole idea. A 20-year-old shouldn't go act like a 60-year-old, and a 40-year-old shouldn't go act like a 15-year-old, as we need to remain mature and stay in our lanes. But the thing is, you can still do that while knowing that it's never too late to start something new, that we need to view our ages with optimism, and that we need to just do what makes us happy, successful, and safe in life, and the rest will flow without allowing our age to stand as a barrier or feel like turmoil. So, next time you decide not to start something new because you think it's too late, think again. Next time anyone expects anything of you because of your age, correct them. On your next birthday, keep your head held high and celebrate life. Laugh timelessly, imagine wildly, dream forever, and age positively for a better life.
Thank you, Mana. Next up, we have Aisha. Aisha is a passionate junior at ACS who'll be talking about economic opportunities that can be found within an economic crisis. In the midst of a COVID economic crisis, women in Jordan have found their own unique way to prosper and take advantage of a dire situation that they didn't consider so dire.
An independent economy is a reflection of an independent woman. Two birds, one stone. Improve the economic situation, encourage the emancipation of women. If there's one thing COVID taught us, it's patience and positivity. Most of us had a half-empty outlook towards this year, only to realize there's not much use in doing that. As for the handful who had committed to staying optimistic, countless opportunities were opened up to them. Yes, this will be a talk focused on telling the stories of inspiring women in our society, but also a moral for the significance optimism may have in such difficult times. Walking into the supermarket with my dad for weekly grocery shopping, I went to grab the honey from one of the aisles, only to see that there were shortages in the usual honey brand we buy. Starting to look for alternatives, none appealed to me, so we just left the store without honey. This was surprising and concerning because it occurred 3 more times after. something as essential as honey not in stock, I wondered what other essentials may have fallen short. Sometimes, the most successful solutions and business ideas are the ones that pursue the interest of more than just one party, especially ones that take liability and turn it into an opportunity. I want to share with you the story of Lama. Lama is a mother of a child whose father is spending time in jail. During this crisis, she was finding it extremely difficult to stay afloat. So Lama began making white cheese from the resources she had. She saw an opportunity to fill the gap of missing imported goods, specifically cheese. The majority of the cheese found in stores is imported and hence strongly impacted when travel restrictions were put in place. Lama pitched her product to the Jordan River Foundation, which only sells products to support their respective producers, whether they are farmers, craftspeople, or simply locals. As a result, Lama sold her cheese and her economic situation has improved ever since. As people started to look for attractive replacements, cheaper products that still maintained quality, Lama put it in their hands as she compensated for national shortages. Kayed has a similar story, tracing all the way back to Karak. She is 44 years old and was also able to take advantage of this circumstance and decided to start making embroidered masks with nice materials and cloth. She also had very reasonable and low prices, which gave her more customers during this time. She took advantage of the situation to start her project, encouraging the population to support locals and maintain their high standards. Kayed saw an opportunity to use her existing resources and create a new product to meet a growing demand for protective masks. Just imagine how extensive the impact would be if even more women led their own initiatives and stepped into the working economy. Economic independence never looked more promising. Women start businesses that aim to help people and their community or country. They start more businesses in healthcare, education, and social assistance industries than men, according to the OECD. Everything starts somewhere, no matter how simple the first steps are. COVID has caused an agitation in our economic situation in Jordan, to say the least, impacting many families living in Jordan. One aspect of this agitation is the shortage of imports in Jordan due to the coronavirus and the increases in the cost of shipping. Certain products have disappeared from the market or became unaffordable to Jordanians and their families. However, this gave an opportunity for local women to flourish. Because there was less competition from the outside, they could therefore sell to outlets which were full of imported products, but have now given local producers a chance to compete and sell to them. The local Jordanian products found a larger market, and due to the bad economic situation, which worsened with COVID, people are switching products which the locals can provide them while maintaining the quality in the products that they sell. As people no longer made requests upon their traveling relatives, many were deprived of organic and foreign products. As ordering was no longer an option because of the extremely expensive tax payments and customs, where you can't exceed $40 for skin products, for example, Ahmed made soap and soap bars. When importation decreased during this economic crisis, more local production was needed to meet the needs of the people. And so she benefited from entering the competitive market in stores like Yanboot, and her soap was bought more frequently. This improves our local market and increases accessibility to it by people of lower income, which eventually improves our economic situation and financial independence. Ahmad was able to thrive in a market system with fewer global competitors. COVID has been draining, but not for everyone. It created more opportunities for local producers and specifically women. One woman I should also mention is Ala, a talented tailor and innovator who was given the opportunity to be part of a project where she would be given cloth provided by, and chosen by me and my mom to use in order to create prayer clothes that were portable and that can be folded into a small bag to be used by and bought. This project has led to a major increase in Ala's income as she gained attention during this uneventful time and crisis. She was able to spread her project among the people and receive many requests, which started her own little business off. She created a creative product with very low and reasonable prices, which grew the number of requests during this time, while still maintaining the high quality cloth checked by my mom and me as we supported her in our access free time during COVID-19. But it doesn't stop there. Ala wasn't the only party who benefited from this initiative. From buying the cloth, we created a supply chain in which we benefited the store owner. From giving the cloth to Ala and selling the product for her, we benefited Ala. From selling the product to the customers, we benefited them. It's a cycle that benefits different parties and not just these women. Such initiatives create these cycles that are like a chain of positive impact. When more people request Ala's product, we repeat the cycle and we benefit the cloth store. Ala took an existing product that women use in Jordan and made it smaller and more portable. At present, she does custom orders and has used this success to impact the whole supply chain. These women and their businesses are examples to highlight that the economic fallout of COVID has created new opportunities. Adapting to become more efficient and effective only comes when we are forced into difficult circumstances, economic crises, because only under extreme pressure can diamonds be forged.
Thank you so much, Kaisha. Next up, we have Imran. Imran is also a junior at ACS, and he'll be revealing some of the obstacles that he overcame through his journey with diabetes. He will also reveal how diabetes was a blessing in disguise, as it helped him form a youth support group.
Diabetes, a blessing in disguise. I've always had a sweet tooth. I just love chocolate, gummy candies, cotton candy, ice cream, and the list goes on. Almost anything and everything that has sugar, I want to eat. This is not exactly the best trait for a person diagnosed with diabetes. It's like mixing fire with gasoline. This mix has at times caused me to be dizzy, weak, and even lose consciousness. Diabetes is a chronic disease where the pancreas stops producing insulin. In other words, it is when the body does not properly process food to use as energy. I found out I had type 1 diabetes at the age of 6. And since then, my normal routine includes pricking my finger to test my blood sugar before each meal, and then injecting myself with insulin right after. Life with diabetes has taken a lot of adjusting and adapting, from being relaxed and carefree about what I put in my body to having to precisely calculate the grams of carbohydrates in every tiny snack that I wanted to eat. Although I knew I had to live with this disease for the rest of my life, I did not want to dwell on it. Instead, I wanted to make the best of a bad situation. I was determined to overcome the upheaval it had brought me. Diabetes was not going to stop me from what I wanted to do. Thus, my normal also included joining all the school activities I enjoyed, school trips, seeing friends, participating in a number of sports. I was even on the Jordanian national tennis team. I may have been living with a chronic illness, but I decided not to dwell on it or let it define me. I wanted to be more than a person with diabetes. I wanted to do more. That is not to say that I did not at times question, why me? Why am I the only one who can't just eat that piece of chocolate cake between meals? In those times, I often felt that discussing my struggles would be of no use. As much as my family and friends tried to emphasize, I felt that they never fully understood my challenge. As they say, to truly feel something, you have to experience it. So therefore, I was alone. Or was I? I always wished that there was a community of other young people that I could confide in, of people that were going through the same thing. That is when I got the idea for the Diabetes Youth Support Group. The Diabetes Youth Support Group is for those between the ages of 8 and onwards. Younger members of the group discuss with the older mentors issues they are having, share ideas, tips, tricks, recipes, and more. The enthusiasm of the members and the liveliness and impact of the gatherings really showed me the value of reaching out, the strength in numbers, and rewarded me by knowing that I made someone's journey with diabetes just a little less tedious. Yet that is not all. After the first Diabetes Youth Support Group meeting, I realized how satisfying it is to help others to improve. In one way, the feeling of giving and the feeling of having a worthwhile purpose is indescribable. Over the years, having diabetes has taught me innumerable that are going through similar situations as you. Don't be shy or afraid to reach out. There's always something that can be done to improve a situation for yourself and others. What at first may seem unfair turns out to actually be an opportunity to surpass one's limitation, an opportunity to become a better person, and an opportunity to be of service. Therefore, diabetes is a blessing in disguise. Now, my life without diabetes would definitely be easier, but would it be better? Thank you.
Thank you, Ramjan. Finally, as our last speaker of the event, we have Jad. Jad is a freshman at ACS who will be talking about the art of being serious. His speech wants to leave the audience with a sense of a new idea on seriousness and how taking things a little too seriously could worsen mental health and affect the choices that we're making.
And it was time for students to start doing their MAP tests, or measure of academic progress. It's a test you take at the beginning and end of each year. It's a wonderful idea to not take it seriously. All these people are all sweaty-faced and study hard, but not this year. So I walk into class, sit down at my desk, and breeze through the thing in like 20 minutes, guessing all the questions. Can you guess what happened? That's right. I got the best score in the entire grade. But that didn't actually happen. It was the worst score I've seen in my life. It was safe to say that I wasn't a genius for doing that. And that's what this speech is about. My stupidity, my mistakes, and what I've learned from taking things just a little too seriously. So first, I want you to think about yourself, specifically the deeper parts of your mind, the part that hates, the part that dreads, and the part that frightens you. That's the loveliest part of your heart, the most beautiful. I call it your darkness, or your shadow. It makes up your insecurities, your anxieties, frustration. The shadow can affect you in so many ways and change what you do. And sometimes it takes a turn for the worst. Now, this shadow is hungry. It's very hungry. And it feeds upon your negative emotions. And I want you to visualize this. Slowly, it grows and grows, bit by bit, until it takes full control of your body and you end up doing drugs. With your shadow taking the wheel, all rational thinking is shoved into a suitcase and thrown out the window, and you end up doing things you regret. What kinds of things can the shadow do? Well, let's say you start to worry too much and try to be perfect at whatever you're doing. You become too afraid to be proud of yourself, and instead focus your energy on negative talk as a replacement for motivation. You ignore the signs that your mental health is degrading. You ignore the signs that maybe this isn't as big of a deal as you think it is, and you ignore the signs that in reality, you shouldn't care. Another side effect of the shadow, and I bet it's something everyone can relate to, getting offended when your friends make fun of you. Of course, I've been made fun of a lot. That should be quite obvious. And I started to notice that when you overreact at these jokes, you train your mind to start interpreting everything everyone does towards you as negative. You start to think that your friends hate you, or their texts seem rude. which guess what? Harms your mental health and feeds this shadow of yours. So there's all these times when being serious can increase the negativity of your life. You view things around you as negative, stressing yourself out in important situations. You can ask, oh, how can I stop this? And honestly, I have no clue. But I do have a proposal. The shadow feeds off negative energy, right? It eats up your bad feelings and spits them out as things that are even worse. But what if there's a way to stop that? Technically speaking, if you limit the amount of food he eats, you starve him out. And that's where being serious comes into play. Seriousness. I've mentioned it before. But what is it? No, seriously. Or what is being serious? It could be part of your personality, or it could be part of your work, or it could be a decision you make. When you do your homework, you've got to be serious. When you're designing a bridge, you've got to be serious. When you write a speech, you've got to be semi-serious, right? Being serious is a decision to focus hard and try your best without distraction. And here's where the interesting stuff comes in. When you be serious, two things happen. You become more productive and you get more work done. But you can also allow a buildup of negative emotions, right? They can come from stress, frustration, anger, anything that makes you feel bad. On the other hand, you have the times when you aren't so serious. You get lazy and don't do any work. But suddenly, all these negative emotions don't seem to matter anymore because you don't care. So by deciding to be serious or not, you have slight command over these negative emotions that affect your life. Which means, as you guessed, you have the power to influence your shadow. And with great power comes great responsibility. Abraham Lincoln. You don't have control over what you feel. Frankly, it's unpredictable. But you can control what feeds into these emotions. If you start being less serious, there's a good and a bad. And the good is, you have a less likely chance of letting the shadow take over, because you're choosing not to care about the things that make you more stressed. Of course, you can't always not take things seriously. You have tests and grades and things that could affect your life in numerous ways. But what about the things that don't? Why work hard and get stressed over something that you don't know will make you any happier? Because that's the goal, right? You live life to be happy. I'm not encouraging you to not be serious. I'm encouraging you to think about why you should. I'm not a master at this. I've still got tons of stuff to learn. But I've realized it's a necessary skill to know when to care and when to let go. You're getting mad over a guy on the internet who called you Lulu. I know, it's painful. But why be serious about it? You want to ask your crush out on a date, but words get rejected. Why overthink it? Why push yourself for a cause that you don't know will make you or others any happier? Because as Edward Hubble once said, don't take life too seriously and never get out of it alive. Those previous examples of mine, especially with the test, are severe cases of what I'm describing. Frankly, there are times when you can take things just a little too jokingly. But when it comes to everyday life and occurrences that don't affect you, like acing a test, or an offensive joke, or just the thought of needing to be perfect for your own sake, chill out. So what I mean by stop being serious is stop overthinking the little things, appreciate, and start understanding your emotions. If you never allow yourself to not be serious, you won't be happy, because the shadow is the one driving you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Jad. This is the end of our 2-day TEDxYouth at ACSAmman event. Before I conclude, I want to take a moment to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to two very special teachers who volunteered their time since October to help me through this process. Thank you to Mr. Cisco and to Ms. Pike for all your efforts. TEDx would not have happened without you. I'd also like to thank Mr. Willis and Mr. Parham for their continuous support throughout the process, in addition to both Rhea and Jonathan for their technical support. Thank you to everyone who joined us and watched today or yesterday. I hope you were all able to take something useful away from our event. And lastly, I wanted to say thank you to all the speakers, Laura, Muna, Aisha, Himdan, and Jad, as well as the wonderful speakers we had yesterday. Thank you for sharing your ideas with us. Thank you.